What's up everybody and welcome back to the channel. So in today's video we are going to talk about 8 crazy quirks with the Audi S3. So recently bought the S3 to sit alongside the R35 GTR, and in today's video basically just going to go over some interesting things about it. All these quirks, none of them are necessarily bad or good. Some are good, some are bad, some are just kind of indifferent. And then keep in mind throughout this video my perspective might be a little bit different than most people, because for the last 4.5 years, this has been my normal car. The R35 GTR has been my daily for the last 4.5 years. So to me, daily driving an abnormal supercar type of vehicle is normal. This is a normal car for me. A normal car, is an abnormal car for me. So I'm not used to having a car that is actually designed to be a practical normal daily. With that said, some of these things are kind of new to me because I'm not used to some normal aspects, which is pretty cool. So with that said, first on the list, of course, has to do with the trunk. I talk about the trunk all the time on certain videos like this, but the thing that I found, which is super cool with the S3, when you tap the trunk button, the entire trunk opens all the way up. That is so cool to have such a practical feature. On top of that, obviously we have a trunk button on this key fob. We have one on the trunk lid and on the interior. The fact that every time I press one of the buttons, it opens all the way is so practical. I use my trunk all the time. I drive this to go do reviews, things like that. You know, I'll have this loaded up with my lunchbox, camera bag, tools, equipment, other thing that I'm doing. So it is so nice to have that as a practical trunk. Now, here's what I'm used to. GTR, my old Supra, you press the button and it pops. I have never not owned a car that did this. Every car I've ever owned, it pops and then you lift the trunk up. So to now have a car that kind of automatically does it is so cool to just have that type of practicality. So with that said, moving on to number 2, which has to do with the functions of this key fob. Now this isn't necessarily a specific thing for the Audi S3, a lot of cars do this, but when you hold down the unlock button, the windows and the sunroof open up. That is a really, really nice feature, especially in the hot summer days. You can let all that hot air out, the back cracks open. I think that is super sweet. My 370Zs from back in the day had that, as well as my Supra, so again, it's not too uncommon. However, I also like when you hit the lock button, everything then closes. So that is a really nice feature to have on a car like this. If it starts to rain out all of a sudden and you have them down, I love how you can easily do that without having to get into the car. When I had the new Nissan Z here, it would put the windows down but not up. So it is really nice that the Audi does both of that. So next on the list is how the Audi's doors open. Now everybody's probably familiar with how car doors open. When you open them out, there's like 3 set spots that it opens. The Audi is really cool because there's only 2. There's one when you first open it and then all the way at the end. Aside from that, you have the freedom to open the door pretty much at any angle. So if I open this up, it's gonna automatically stop right there. However, any more I open it, it stops where I let go. So you don't have to worry about the door all of a sudden flying into a car next to you. I think that is such a cool aspect. It just makes it so much easier with the way it works. Now on the GTR, it's pretty normal. It opens and then right there it stops. However, if I open it up anymore, it's just going to fly into the Audi because it has presets. So the fact that these doors open up wherever I want to stop them is just such a nice feature, especially when you have it really close to the car next to you. You can just open them up and you don't have to worry about the door being close to one of those presets to where it's gonna fly into the car next to you. Now that is so nice. So the 4th quirk on my list has to do with the cup holders. So we have 2 cup holders right here in front of the shifter, and I think whoever designed the cup holders was not the same person who designed the dashboard. And the reason why I say that is your control panel right here is actually at a slight angle. When you look at it in relation to the cup holders, they're not the same. So I always have a water bottle with me. I drink a ton of water, and for me, cup holders are kind of important. And the driver's side cup holder is really nice. Pretty good spot. I can easily put this here, do my buttons, do what I need to do. However, for the passenger, because this is at a slant, when I go to put this into this side, it doesn't quite fit, and in fact, the top of the cup hits onto the buttons there. And depending on what kind of bottle you have or something, literally this is now in the button, and you can hear it clicking my climate controls. So you have to very carefully place it and know that this side cup holder doesn't give you the same type of room that the driver's side does, because the climate controls are at a slanted angle versus the straight angle that the cup holders are on. So it's kind of interesting to get used to as a passenger. And see right now, a little bit harder to get out, and it hit this button getting out. So it's going to change your climate control buttons half the time depending on how big your water bottle is. But that is just a weird little thing I've noticed with this car. The cup holders and climate control angle is a little off to where you end up hitting buttons every time you use that right side. Now, along with the cup holder situation, there's really not that much storage in this car. It's not that it's bad. However, being a small car, you are kind of limited. Obviously, you have those two cup holders. In front of them, you do have a little bit of area for like a cell phone or something, but it's literally an inch wide. And if you have two cups in there, obviously it's kind of hard to get to. There's no real center storage. You do get the armrest with a nice amount of space for maybe two phones, two wallets, some keys, something like that. And then you have cup holders on the doors, which is nice, and a little bit of storage behind that. But when you look at the newer S3 and the RS3, the cup holders are now on the side, and they have a really long area for storage up in front. So I wouldn't mind just a little bit more in the car. So just know you're getting a smaller car, at least when you're buying an S3. So number 5 on the list has to do with your volume and track button. So over on the center console, this is actually your volume on off for the audio. You spin this dial, of course, to crank up the volume, and then you also have your volume dial right here. Now, from the looks of it, there's actually no track button. You have a left and right icon here, but that's actually just for the screen up above. So with that said, you have to go down here, and you can see these little arrows. You actually bump this over, and that's how you change your track, going next track and back track. And then of course you can mute it and then do the volume. The quirky thing with this, of course, being kind of a bad spot for volume, several times I put either my camera bag or lunchbox or something in this general area, and it will roll this and very easily blast your music without you thinking. That has happened a few times because that's in such an obvious, easy spot to touch. Now, with that said, of course you have it up here for convenient use. And a cool thing that I really like is this star icon right here. As you can see, tapping that icon, we can now change the songs. This is actually a configurable button. You can do all sorts of different things with this by setting it up in the screen. Originally, it was actually set up to do the drive select, but I switched it to the track because it's a lot easier here. And obviously this button's right here, so it's easy to get to. But you can make this your track next button. With that said, you can't go back. So you have to only go back by using this one. But with all that said, this and that, definitely a funky setup the way Audi has done it for this car. It is pretty easy, but it takes a little bit getting used to, especially when you can easily hit this and blast your music. Now, number 6 on the list has to do with the screen right in the center. So obviously, you have all your controls down here. It's not even a touch screen, which, you know, for the year, that kind of makes sense. But with the screen here, the cool thing about it is, right here, it actually goes into the dashboard and hides away. That's a pretty neat thing. I think really only Audis of this generation had this type of feature. I know old Aston Martins had a screen that popped up, but I can't really think of many cars that do this. Now the quirk with it, obviously it's a little funky having a screen pop up. And the funny thing is, if the screen is down and you put the car into reverse, the screen has to then pop up. If I go ahead and turn the screen down, you know, if I have it like that and then I put the car into reverse, it's going to take a second. With the car running, of course, it'll then do that once you've put it into reverse. So you gotta wait for it to do that. So kind of funky to have that on top of the screen actually moving up and down. I don't know how durable this is. I hope it doesn't break. At least there's a nice access panel right here that I'm sure you can have pretty easy access to get the screen out if and when it breaks. Hopefully it'll last the life of this car at least. But pretty funky to have a screen popping up out of your dashboard every time you turn on the car and off. Now, number 7 on the list has to do with the sunroof on the S3. So as you can see, I have the glass roof open. Really nice feature to have a panoramic roof like this in a car like this. The funky thing is, with the glass roof open, I can close this mesh shade. So I can basically get all the airflow in the car. Feels like I have all the windows down. However, the sunshade is going to block the sun. So it's a pretty cool feature to get all of that airflow, but have that roof open. I don't think I've ever seen another car aside from an Audi that lets you do that. You can independently close and open the sunshade from the glass. Now, the only downfall with that is when the glass roof is closed, you can kind of feel the sun even when the sunshade is closed. It maybe blocks like 90% of the heat and the sun's rays. So you can just barely feel it if you kind of put your hand up there and really concentrate on feeling it. When I do get this car's windows all tinted, I think I'm gonna have them do the glass just with a nice clear piece just to block out the little bit extra heat and sun, just to make sure this car stays nice and cool. Obviously, normal cars with a normal sunshade, it's a physical piece of like cardboard or plastic or something underneath the fabric material. This is literally a screen that's kind of transparent. So I think it is definitely a benefit. I love that feature, but I think tinting the sunroof is probably a good idea just to really keep the car cool. But with that said, pretty sweet to have something like that. So now to move on to number 8 on the list, that's gonna have to do with the transmission in this car. So this is actually a drivability quirk with the car, and honestly it's actually the same even on the RS3. So the Audi S3, this is kind of a more performance focused car. It's supposed to be a sporty car. It has nearly 300 horsepower in torque with a turbo engine. We do get a dual clutch transmission, which is fantastic. However, the thing I've noticed, it doesn't really let you take full manual control. Now I don't know with transmission tuning if you can really dial that in and take full control 100%, but that is a little bit of a drawback with this transmission the way it works. So right now I'm currently driving it in drive. You can see the D indicator on the gauges letting you know you're in drive. However, you can take the shifter down below and bump us over into the manual mode and then take control. You can now see the M4 and let me downshift and upshift using the paddle shifters and then using the shifter here. However, what I've noticed, sometimes it doesn't really let you downshift into a low gear if it doesn't want you to. It seems to be kind of hit or miss depending. And then when you do near redline, it will automatically upshift for you. So I didn't even hit the paddle and yet it automatically upshifted for me, and it kind of just drove it like it's in the sport automatic transmission mode. So sometimes it'll let you downshift like normal, but I think it kind of depends on the speed you're going. But see, I'm not even shifting and yet it's shifting like it's in manual mode. So kind of interesting how it does that. It's not bad, I would say. However, being that I'm used to the GTR, again, that's my normal car. That's a normal car to me, even though it's pretty crazy. But to me, a car that literally lets you take 100% full manual control when you have it in the manual shift mode, that's what I'm used to. And I hope with DSG tuning, I can get this transmission to 100% let me do exactly what I want when I want to. The GTR, the only things it really does is if I'm going too slow, it won't let me upshift because it's like in a manual. You can't do that, you can't drive at 200 RPM. So it'll be nice to see what I can do with this car with tuning. I've seen the same thing on the RS3s, even though that is a very, very performance oriented car compared to even this. So anyway, those are the 8 crazy quirks with the Audi S3. I don't think I'm really gonna make a 5 things I hate about this car video. I don't really hate anything about it. It just seems like a really, really good, normal, practical daily driver, and yet you get all the performance. There's a few things, of course, that are a little weird about it, given the size, given the luxury brand it has associated with it. There's some nice features, obviously. And then I think with the performance, I think the aftermarket support, all the tuning, stuff like that, I think this really is gonna come together to be a really, really good, solid, daily, comfortable car, luxury car, and performance car. So that is it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Stay tuned for plenty more content, and I'll see you guys in the next video.